Welcome to Beauty and the Biz. Discover how to grow your practice with effective cosmetic patient attraction, conversion, and retention advice from author, speaker, trainer, and cosmetic practice business and marketing coach, Catherine Maley, MBA.
Hello, and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the marketing and business side of plastic surgery practices. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgery practices to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's a special day because I have an incredibly great guest, and I'm very excited about him because he really knows this game well. He's been in the industry a long time, and he's going to give us a ton of value. It's Dr. Rob Sigal. He is the managing partner of a very successful plastic surgery practice called Austin Weston, the Center for Cosmetic Surgery. Now, it's located outside of Washington, D.C. in a town called Reston, Virginia. Now, this is the best part. There are 4 board-certified plastic surgeon partners with over 75 years of combined experience. I believe it's even the longest-running plastic surgery practice in the area or the state or the region. I'll ask Dr. Sigal to clear that up. But I have been there. It's gorgeous. It's got 5 fully equipped, accredited operating suites on site, along with a med spa offering non-surgical treatments. They've also got an office manager, staff of patient coordinators, estheticians, nurse injector, laser techs, surgical techs, and admin. So I want to welcome Dr. Sigal to Beauty and the Biz.
I am so delighted to be here talking to you. This is great.
Thank you so much. And let's just go ahead and start. Just tell me, how did you get into plastic surgery and how did you find your way over to Austin West?
There's always a story, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah, I trained for 9 years, right, in my surgical residency. And over the course of that period of time, I saw medicine change. This was back, I got out of medical school in 85. So I went out to LA, did some general surgery, and then I came back to Philadelphia. I did some cancer research, and I finished my general surgery, and then I came back to Philadelphia and did my plastic surgery. And over that period of time, reimbursable medicine just sort of went away, and HMOs came off to the fore. I was going to be a cancer surgeon, an academic cancer surgeon. But I knew what I learned doing the cancer research was I wasn't that smart, and I wasn't going to cure cancer, and I was going to struggle for grants, and I didn't like writing grants. And frankly, I didn't like the academic environment. I didn't like the politics of it. And so it's rough, right? And so you get to know yourself over a while. And it's actually one of the benefits of taking your time as you train. And I sort of saw the plastic surgery option as a way to get outside of reimbursable medicine if I wanted to choose that route. And ultimately, at the end of my training, it seemed the most palatable way to go. And Harvey Austin and George Weston, I was in Philadelphia, they were down in Reston, Virginia, outside D.C., like you said. They advertised in Plastic Surgery News for the position. And something that, as it turns out, George Weston had written was that we have, quote, a wonderful staff that takes wonderful care of us and our patients, unquote. And that line, I can't believe I still remember it. I haven't thought of that line, honestly, in 30 years, 25 years, but it rang with me, and it made me realize that I need to be taken care of coming out of my training. I was I thought I thought I was overly good. I was okay as a surgeon, but I knew that I didn't know how to run a business, and I needed help. And these guys were close enough to Philadelphia that I could visit my in-laws and bring my 2 little kids with me, but they weren't so close that my in-laws could just drop in.
Right.
And so, right, and when I was in Philly, it was great to have them do that, but it was just seemed like at the right place. And I thought, DC was a really interesting place to be. And so I came down. I met with them, and they didn't accept me. They said I had.
What did they say?
Yep, they said I was too academic, and that I didn't have. I never showed a real interest in cosmetic surgery. And I wrote them back. And I said, I think you misjudged me. I never really had an opportunity to really dive into cosmetic surgery in my plastic surgery training. I was really about publishing papers and doing bench research, et cetera, et cetera. And so they invited me back down. And I remember Harvey saying, I think this is one of the lessons, if there are any take-home lessons from what we talk about today, that when people insist on being with you, listen and consider taking them. And right, so they just keep showing up, those people that just won't quite go away, you know. And I sort of was that, and Harvey was attuned to it, and they hired me, and I've been there for 25 years since.
Were you hired as a contractor, an associate? How did you position yourself?
Yeah, so we had, this is another important thing I think to take home, is that we had a business advisor, a guy named Jacques Rabibo, who I've since turned on to other plastic surgeons, and he's helped a number of them structure their practices profitably and integrate personalities. What he designed was what he called easy in, easy out. So George and Harvey were partners at that point, and I came on the first year as a salaried employee. Second year, I was a salary, they raised my salary. Third year, I was salary plus overage. In other words, I was going to take 25% of what I billed, plus my salary was guaranteed. Fourth year was the same thing, as was the fifth year. And after 5 years, I became partner. Now, that money that I was contributing above what I was taking home was going into the practice kitty, if you will. And the partners, after paying expenses, were taking it home. Harvey was getting what we called a premium payment for the 5 years that I was doing that, a buy-in, if you will. And that premium payment is different than a buyout. Harvey didn't go away at the end of his payment, of his premium payment. He stuck around for probably another 7, 8 years. George had his premium payment a number of years ago. Our qualifications are that you be with us for 21 years before you're eligible for it. George got his premium payment. He's still around. I got my premium payment, and I'm still around. I just finished, and I just passed the presidency of the practice over to Dr. Poindexter. Byron Poindexter, who's now the president, I'm the director. Dr. Knott finished his 5-year buy-in, and he is now a partner. So there's 4 partners, and Poindexter's getting the premium payment. And we have the rule that as the senior partner getting the premium payment, you become the president of the practice. And the presidency in our practice doesn't mean that you make all the decisions. In fact, it's very much a democracy, right? We sit down every Tuesday night, and we have it organized by the Tuesday. The first Tuesday of the month is marketing. Second is business. Third is a staff meeting where we all get together over dinner and do different topics. And fourth, at the moment, is off. So we all sit around on that second, all of those meetings really, and during the course of the day, because we're all in one building. And when issues come up, we'll hash it out. If somebody feels really, really strongly about something, we'll defer. Nobody, and this is like another take-home point. You got to take your ego out of business, and if you don't, you're in trouble. So that's very hard for surgeons, man. Like we have fairly significant egos, and it's really hard to not do. Like here's an example. Okay, early on in my practice, I had a patient that was unhappy with her result, and she wanted her money back. Now, I didn't do anything wrong. Her surgical result was okay. It wasn't, what she wanted, but she wanted her money back. And I was like, no, I'm not going to give you your money back. It was, a great result. So I went to Jacques, the business guy, and he says, give her money back. And I said, what? Why would I do that? I said, her result is fine. And he said, because it's not worth it. Just move along with your life. And so I asked the other really good businessman that I know, my father-in-law in Philadelphia, and I described the situation. He said, give her the money back. And I'm like, wow. The 2 smartest businessmen I know say, give her money back. You know what? I'm going to listen. And I gave her, I don't remember this woman. I just remember this lesson. Okay. Over the course of the years, I've given probably a half a dozen people their money back. And it's 25 years I've been in practice. Never been sued. But there's something going on now, Catherine. I know you're well aware of this. Things have changed significantly over the years. Now, the threat of writing something bad about you on the internet is enough for me to consider it. 25 years ago, you couldn't do that. You get a bad review. You got to think about it. It ain't worth getting sued. And why do people get sued? People get sued because patients feel ignored, disrespected, and just dropped, made wrong. Don't ever do that to patients. And if they getting a little bit of money back at the end of the day is nothing. It just isn't. So anyway, where were we?
So how competitive was it? How many years ago did Austin Weston start that practice?
So Harvey started back in 1978. At that point, yeah. So I'll tell you something. There's a certain founder mentality that you got to have. And if younger people are listening to this, you got to have this if you're going to be a successful founder of a practice. And I call it the gene that doesn't give a shit what people say about you, right?
That is
Like,
so true. You can't care what other people are saying. You have to stay focused.
you gotta be willing to do stuff that, like, and I wasn't, I just I thought twice about saying shit right there. Like I'm just kind of like very self-aware, and I'm concerned about what other people think about me. Harvey couldn't care less.
Good for him.
So this is back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
He left a practice in Pittsburgh, a successful practice of reconstructive and cosmetic in Pittsburgh, to do a course called S.
Oh my gosh.
Down here in
Est was
Est.
yes, it was. I'm in Sausalito. The guy from Est lived on a sailboat out here and developed Est.
Did he really?
Warren, what's his name?
Werner Earhart.
Yes.
That wasn't his name. He was like a car salesman or something outside Philly. But he had some pretty crazy insights, and I ended up doing some of the courses because Harvey thought they were important, and in fact they were important. So that's another lesson. Your best things that you're going to learn in life aren't necessarily what you learned in your medical school or in your surgical training, as applicable to your practice of medicine. Harvey came down here, did S, realized that he was really unhappy in his life up in Pittsburgh, and so he left his practice. He gave all of his belongings to Jacques, gentleman I mentioned before, who he had actually met in S, and went driving across the country. Found himself one Christmas weeping behind a dumpster, as he tells it, in Arizona. And he realized he was going to come back, and he was going to do just what he wanted. And so all he wanted to do in plastic surgery was cosmetic surgery. And so he opened up his practice in 1978 in an apartment building. He ended up operating in the dining room.
Wow.
With his wife as his receptionist. And the key when you first start is to keep your expenses low. And he realized, so he went back to Est and he started teaching some of the seminars as an opportunity to just get up in front of 100 people and say, "Hi, my name is Harvey Austin. I'm a cosmetic surgeon in McLean, Virginia. Consults are free. Come on by. Now, this is what we're going to talk about tonight." And he tells a story about putting before and after books together, and at one point going to a wedding with his before and after books and showing them on the dance floor. Now, you know what? I could never do that. I have that gene that cares what people think about me. Harvey didn't have it.
Wait, just as an aside, for anybody who, are you on YouTube yet? His daughter just got married, and he did the most amazing song with his own lyrics. That was amazing. Like, it was TV grade amazing.
I can't believe you saw that.
Oh my God, I love it. Is that on YouTube?
I'm not sure yet. It will at some point. Well, I think this just happened, Catherine, and so we had like videos from the crowd. But what we don't have is like the professional video, which we were going to put up on our Austin Weston site. But I may put this one up and put the other one up.
Well, you've come a long way. Yes, you're.
Well,
you're not
but
just
honestly, so I want to tell you something. Well, it's all part of that, right? Like I rehearsed that 50 times. I was concerned about what I wrote. It had to be perfect. It had to make me weep, or I didn't even include it. Right. So Harvey wouldn't have cared. He would have gotten up and riffed about it and said, "I'm a cosmetic surgeon, and consults are still free." And I'm not about to do that. Right. Anyway. But so that founder's gene was really important. And one of the, I know people are interested in marketing that are listening to this, but recognize whether you have that gene or not. And if you don't, consider partnering with someone who you recognize has it. But one of the coolest things, besides that early marketing at no cost or really little cost, that I remember doing was I was in charge of the marketing. Right? That's another thing we do is we let the youngest guy do the marketing. If they have any talent for it, because it allows them some sense of control of the practice, which is important, and it gives them some significant responsibility for everyone's well-being, and that sort of inculcates that team spirit, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I remember Harvey ended up writing articles about different aspects of cosmetic surgery, and he was the first person to advertise in the Washingtonian magazine, which every big city has their equivalent, that glossy magazine. And that, when he started doing it, was generating an 11-to-1 return, So we that was back in the day, yes. But nobody was doing it. But that took a certain amount of not caring, what people said about you. And this was great. I just remembered this. You know how he got to the point where he didn't care what his colleagues thought about him? Mm-hmm. This is something from S. He learned that recreation leads to disappearance. In other words, the more you go over something that has pain for you, the less hold it has on you. And he showed me at his house one time, I'd come over for dinner, a notebook where he had written down, my colleagues will laugh at me. And he filled the notebook with it.
Nice.
And by the time he got to the end of that, he didn't care anymore. And he advertised in the Washingtonian magazine. Now, whether it's good or bad, we can talk about, but it's an interesting technique. You know,
Well,
when
how
you're concerned
successful
about
was
something.
he?
Oh, he was very successful. He had the largest practice of cosmetic surgery. It was pretty impressive.
Huh.
The graph that he showed, how he was able to grow his practice. And then George showed up, and George tells the story about, you know, Harvey coming to pick him up in an old Rolls with a cigar in his mouth, and George said, "Who is this guy?" You know, but George was a fellowship trained surgeon out of Wake Forest, and was and still is exceptionally gifted. He's an extraordinarily really good cosmetic surgery, better than Harvey. Harvey was a ballsy surgeon, and he's the one that we do the mouth course every year at ASPS. We're doing it actually at the AACS this year, so if you'll be there,
Nice, I'll be there. Yeah.
You'll be there, yeah. So it takes a certain amount of surgical daring to put cuts around the mouth like that he was willing to do, and nobody was willing to do it. And he ended up writing it up, and George was a better surgeon. Harvey's patients, sometimes I didn't really align myself with the way they looked. Let's put it that way. And so when I came down, both were very successful. They had the first freestanding surgical clinic in the Metro DC area, and I just sort of thought I can work here. You know, Harvey and I faced a couple of times where I actually yelled at him, other than that one time that I can remember, this is a long time ago, I don't know that I've ever had a cross word with Weston, Poindexter, or Knott. And I don't think any of us have. So in our practice, no surgeon has ever left. We have staff that have been there for 30 years, and we have 35 staff. So some people, we rotate. I mean, some people move on. You know, the younger ones, that they go to nursing school, or they go to medical school sometimes. But you know, it's been the right choice for me. You know, I was always a team player in college. I rode on Harvard's crew team, and we were Ivy League champions a couple of times. And if crew doesn't teach you anything, it teaches you how to participate with others and make boat go. You know,
Right.
And right, and it's who I have turned out to be. So.
Well, the one thing I noticed that you do differently than others is all of the communication that you do is unusual. For you to meet every week with each other, you just have such open communication, and the staff, when you're there, you can feel it as a well-running machine where there's a lot of camaraderie, and that is unusual. Usually there's some backstabbing going on. There's a lot of egos going askew. How do you, so you must have the same values, because I know that's the underlying theme
Hugely
of
important.
partnerships.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
So I want to say
You
one thing
find
before
that
I get into that. Well, I want to say one thing about you before we get into that. And for people that are listening to this, you know, Catherine, you bring a tremendous wealth of experience to this universe, this business, cosmetic surgery advising. And so you came to our practice. I found you, and you came to our practice. And when you come to our practice, you come with eyes that are not only trained to the nuances of what works out there, but you see us from outside eyes, and you can see not only what does work, but you know what doesn't work. In other words, like, I've been in the practice so long, I don't see these things. It's almost, if you were born with yellow sunglasses on,
right.
what would the world look like?
Yellow.
You know, well, it would look normal.
Oh,
right,
that's true.
right. And so the things that are in my office, they look sort of normal to me. I'm talking to you now. I don't even know how different the practice is from what you see when you come. And so when you go to other people's practices, if they hire you like we did, you bring these really great new vision of the practice that we don't even have. Like, for example, you introduced the KPI thing to us, remember?
Mm-hmm.
That KPI thing was really very, very helpful. This key performance indicator, it's a way to get your staff involved in the management of the practice. We do it as part of the entire staff meets on Wednesday morning from 8 to 9. And we have a period of reconnecting, and then we go over our KPIs, like who's doing what how we're doing, et cetera. So I just wanted to say that it's the culture of the practice is somewhat, I can't kind of see it. Now, having said that, Jacques, business advisor that I've mentioned before, loves this topic of culture. And he generated a 3 hour long session about 3-4 months ago, where he came in at 5 o'clock and sat down with the staff, with all of us, and talked about culture. Why our culture is different than, for example, his universe's banking, a bank's culture. Why is it different than a police force? Why is it different than a school system? And so, what do we value? And at the top of our culture is safety. Well, that's not necessarily valued in an educational system, for example. And so these are actually we can make these available on our site, our YouTube site. I think they're very helpful for people to understand the nuances of their culture, the distinctions about how to think about culture. It is very important. And one thing is coming up right now, Catherine, that's really very interesting. It's gossip, and it's gossip versus the value of long-term employees, right? So we are living in this question right now of what do we do with two long-term employees who have a history of being sort of gossipy, talking about others in an unconstructive way. But they've been with us for, 10 years and longer, both of them. And they bring a certain amount of institutional knowledge that is going to be hard to get rid of, So we're struggling with it. Jacques has been very helpful because it's so funny. The younger guys are more in favor of moving on. And the older guys, which I'm one, are more conflicted about it. So how we're resolving it is very important. And Jacques, having an outside business advisor that we all respect, is very important when you have these larger groups like ours is. I use when I was president up until a month ago. I would email, talk to him once a week, asking for his thoughts on it. And I wouldn't always do what he said, but he made me think about it differently. And just getting new ideas like you bring to practices is very important. You can reject them, but sometimes they make you think of something, and that's more applicable or more efficient for your organization, right? So get outside eyes, go learn things.
I'll tell you what I'm learning, the deeper I get into this is as this industry commoditizes, it will never fully, because a surgeon is still a surgeon and nobody else can do what you do. However, as the patients are trying to choose, it's going to be more and more important that you get that culture down and that you're all working together as a team. And so when a patient walks into your practice, they can feel it. And I don't know if I've lived in Northern California too long, but I'm all feely now. When I walk into a place, it's so easy for me to say, oh dear, we've got a problem here. You can feel the antagonism.
You can feel it.
The snarkiness of the staff, the partners that won't get along. You can feel all of that. And I think that's going to be your competitive edge. When you can figure that out and have a well-running practice with with staff who want to be there, with partners who want to lead, they don't want to manage, they want to lead and let managers manage. I think it's going to be more about who can play that game better than the other person, because it's not going to be about the surgery. It's going to be about the business side of running a surgical practice professionally, emotionally, and with culture. My thing.
Well, what that makes me think of, because you're absolutely right, what that makes me think of is there have been periods in our office now for 25 years where it's been more gossip and less gossip, more gossip, less gossip, real problems, less problems. It's very difficult in real time to figure out who the bad apple is making the apple cart. It's very difficult. You walk into it, like you say, somewhere in Sausalito, and you can sense the snarkiness, but I'm pretty darn sure that the manager in that place is either A, unaware of it, or B, who the source of it is. Yes. But I bet you if you spent a day there, you could figure it out. And so by taking your ego out of the business and asking someone to come in, like we've done multiple times, including you, over the years, we're able to, get a better sense of who the problem is, and then you got to get rid of them. So one of the other Jacques-isms is, hire slowly, fire quickly.
Right.
Fire with, generous severance, give them a month's salary, whatever. But you got to make a move, and don't be afraid to do it. Right.
For sure.
Yeah, one of the benefits, as I'm thinking about what we were going to talk about, is that one of the benefits of having a 4-surgeon group and being, a large 8-figure practice is that you can do certain things that you couldn't do on your own, right? Like you can bring in a consultant and pay them to do this. Like it's no pain to the bottom line, or at least you can rationalize it. Say, well, I'm only paying a quarter of this,
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we have our own marketing person. We had an in-house videographer for a couple of years for a while. We have an ability to do things that you can't do otherwise. It gives you more levers to pull. It gives you more tools to work with, and I appreciate that over the course of my career.
For sure. All right. So
Yeah.
just the last thing about partnership, and then we'll move on to the patient demographics. How are you handling generational differences between the older guys, the newer guy coming on? How's that being handled?
Boy, is that a good question.
Because it has to be.
That is a great question. Well, because the three of us, George, myself, and Byron, have been partners for a long time, and Chris has been with us now for 6-7 years. It's almost like we are, the three of us, of a different generation than Dr. Knotts. For example, I like to be called Rob. He likes to be called Dr. Knotts.
Right.
And I understand it. I understand it. I mean, it and he should be, But this is so. The two oldest, me and Weston, we work 5 days a week. Poindexter and Knotts work 4 days a week.
Oh.
Yeah, and I've tried to let sort of the consequences of that from my perch, from my sense of things, be known, and as to whether it is important or not enough to change behavior. I don't know. It's not hurting the practice per se, but it might hurt an individual practice within the group's practice.
Right.
So I don't know the generational changes. I mean, the millennial generation is now sort of the younger generation that's coming into practice. They value things very differently than my baby boomer generation. And Weston is baby boomer as well. Weston had neck surgery and was back, a disc operated on, and he was back at work in 5 days.
Wow.
And, he was so desperate to get back. I don't know if it was fear-based. I don't know what it was about, but, I would have been out longer, my God. But honestly, you know what? I had an accident one time. I crashed on a bike. I was training for a triathlon, and I was in the hospital with a chest tube for a week. And I was back at work a couple of days after I got out of the hospital with broken shoulders and broken ribs and things. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems like there's a whole cultural difference. They don't seem quite as concerned about money as they are concerned about lifestyle. And I'm now at the point where I kind of don't need the money anymore. But I still can't give it up for the lifestyle. Although I did go down to 4 days a week last summer just to try it.
Did you like it?
And I kind of liked it. I got to tell you, it's kind of nice. The difference between 5 and 2 versus 4 and 3, it really changes the stress level when you come to that 4th day. It's like, I'm going away for 3 days now versus the 5th day. Yesterday I did a 6-hour surgery and I need to go get a massage afterwards. I'm tired. So stamina becomes a bigger issue in the older generation. It's like, can you keep doing this? It's hard.
All right,
Yeah.
let's talk about the patients then. If we're going to talk about generational differences, do your patients, are they getting older with you? Or is like Chris Knotts bringing in the younger crowd? How's that all working out with the patient demographic?
Well, there's a couple of things that brings to mind. My initial answer was yes, that my patients are a little bit older than when I was a younger surgeon. Mm-hmm. I do probably 100 cases, maybe probably more than that a year. I didn't do that early on. Mm-hmm. Dr. Knotts is more bodies and breasts, but our whole practice is more bodies and breasts, I think, and perhaps skewing younger. And that's because of social media. I think that, as that's become more of a marketing force, right? You got your 50, 60-year-old women getting onto Instagram, but not as much as, the 20-year-old, 25-year-old who's living there.
Right.
Facebook, yeah. I guess, what I'm finding Facebook useful is these groups that are there's a Real Housewives of Loudoun County or somewhere around near me, and And somehow, I've never been on the site, I don't know it, but somehow I've gotten mentioned amongst these women, and that
That's golden.
validates, that validation, right? That anonymous validation seems very important. So that has led our practices to skew younger. There's never been a big male part of our practice. I think that's relatively useless. Advertise. Harvey said a long time ago, if you want to do faceless, advertise for facelifts, right? Don't advertise Juvederm and think that Juvederm patient's going to have facelifts someday.
Right.
Well, right? I mean, so that's so my practice is, I think, overall skewing younger, but not. But my practice is getting older within the group's practice skewing younger, and that brings up injectables. I know that it's something that we wanted to talk about, and how do you integrate that? Right. So I love injectables. I think they're really fun. I love using them in creative ways. I always try new things, but within the context of makes sense. In my experience, we brought in our first nurse injector probably 4 years ago. She'd been with us for many years. Got her nurse's degree while she worked for us, nurse practitioner while she worked for us. Great woman, and so we helped build her practice. And the way we differentiated our practice from hers, because we were still doing injections, was we injected by the area and charged a fixed amount, guaranteeing enhancements if necessary at no charge.
Mm-hmm.
She was charging by the unit, and built her practice through Instagram to a really large practice. And I know we want to talk about regrets and successes. One of my major regrets is losing her. She was really a wonderful injector, did my fillers. And and the reason we lost her was because it always gets back to your personal fault. My personal fault of not wanting to be thought badly of. My office manager, was concerned that I was micromanaging, and I didn't want to be accused of it. And so I just sort of laid back and let her do her thing. And she's a wonderful manager, I think. Well, there were gossipy problems festering in the office with our nurse injector, and I didn't know about it. Now, I don't know that I could have made a difference, but by the time I found out about it, I mean, there were tears shed, and it was just a whole drama thing, and I lost her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so it's rough, because she's with us probably 12, 15 years. But now we've got somebody else who I'm very happy with, and I'm happy to build her up too. And I'm not the president anymore, so I don't have to worry about it. But I can kind of be the elder kind of, come talk to me kind of guy. But then you want to empower your manager in the office,
Right.
too. Like, you don't want the staff coming to you, right? You want them coming to your manager and empower her. So it's tricky. Yeah.
Regarding the patient procedures, are you
Yeah.
jumping on the bandwagon with BBLs and all the new technologies happening, or how do you decide if you're going to go with a trend or not, or add a new procedure or not?
Well, you ask a good question. Well, one of the things we do is we go around and we look at what to do, right? And so we go to the meetings, and I don't even go to the meetings for the lectures anymore. I go to the meetings to go to the marketplace,
Right.
to see who's selling what, right? If one of my colleagues who I respect says, you got to check this out, I'll check it out. If I see something in the marketplace I like, I'll ask my colleagues, what do they think? We're slow to bring things on because these things are very expensive, and they're hard to pay off, and they generally have not been worthwhile. What has been worthwhile for us, I would say, has been overall skin resurfacing lasers. Certainly got our money back. The Mirror Dry, I believe, has been helpful for us, and made money on that over the years. And we don't do that, obviously. Our nurses do those things. The BBL we've made money on. Hair lasers we've made money on. I'll tell you what has not been successful has been the Diva addition to the Cyton platform. The vaginal rejuvenation has not been helpful. There was another one that really
You didn't
was
get
kind of useless.
M-Sculpt. Did you get M-Sculpt yet?
No, we never did it. We never have done the big time radio frequency things. I've gone and checked them out. I've actually gone to other surgeons' offices and watched them do these things. But people come in just generally unenamored of the results.
Right.
I'm playing around with thread lifts now. I think thread lifts are really interesting because it fills a void, right? In other words, there's some people that come in, they're not going to have surgery. Filler ain't going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And they want something, they don't want the downtime. So like this may do that for me before I get to sort of a cheek lift, S lift, kind of a thing. So
I can vouch
Um,
for
um,
that.
um,
When I was probably 50, I was definitely, I'm not ready for surgery. I can't believe I need a facelift, but I need something. And I was itching for
yeah,
that. And so were millions of other women. And that's why Lifestyle Lift took off, because they addressed an area where you're not ready for the whole big deal, but you're ready for something. And so yeah.
right. Well, so that makes me think. I just saw who did I? A woman who came in to apply for a job I was operating, and I was just sort of talking to her while I was operating. She had worked at a liposuction clinic in my area I'd never heard of. But like Lifestyle Lift, what they had done was there was a businessman, Lifestyle Lift was a surgeon, who ended up advertising on television. And television is still a very powerful medium, but what you end up with is too many patients that can't afford a lot.
Right.
And so you end up, right? You end up outsourcing these patients to surgeons that are, generally lesser. They're just, for whatever reason, they're not committed, they're not well trained, they're not experienced, whatever. And these things tend to collapse of their own weight, like Lifestyle List did over time. This practice will go out of business. I'm sure. I've seen it too many times.
Mhm.
Remember that they were injecting the bile acids. There was a company that was doing that 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. Was it in your area too? Did they do that, or was it just over here on the East Coast?
What was it?
It was the bile acids, the the dicolic acid that they were injecting into fat right under the chin. Allergan ended up buying a company that does it now.
Yes.
But that's sort of the right way to do it. Introduce
Mhm.
it through your surgeon's office, your provider's office. Don't go out and try to advertise this, because it's not for everybody, right?
Right.
So
Well,
you see
and
these
you'll
business
spend a
plans come and
fortune.
go.
You'll spend a fortune on patient education, and that is not the way to go anymore. I mean, let the vendors do the patient education, but you have to educate them on you. You know,
Right,
I don't think
right,
you've got the time and the money and the energy to explain to the world why they need to do this particular procedure. Anyway.
right.
All right, so let's talk about positioning then. How do you differentiate yourself against all the other competitors, because you're in a super competitive area?
Right. Oh boy, I was thinking about how to answer this, and I think you don't know with marketing really what's going to hit, right? I mean, you take care of your patients as well as you possibly can. You have your office be collinear on the culture. You have it be attractive. You have everything sort of look of a piece. And the patients have now gone to see 3 surgeons, and you're the third one. And
Right.
if you have to convince them that you're the one, you're done. It ain't going to happen. It has to be subtler than that. We tend to be endorsed by the subtler things that people may see when they come in, that they don't even know they're seeing: the colors, the surfaces, the smiles, the graphics, the tech that hopefully is not obtrusive but present. And then we have them meet with a consultant before we see them, and that's just our way of doing it. I'm sure other practices do it that way. I'm sure some don't. But that patient coordinator, or we call them consultants, has the ability to endorse. And you do a great job, Catherine, in talking about your patient coordinators. Are they the right ones for you, and the skill set that they need, right? I would say that there's the beingness of the job, and then there's the doingness of the job,
For
right?
sure.
And if you have to pick somebody to be your patient coordinator, you can't teach beingness. You can teach doing this. You actually, Catherine, can teach how to do it, right? But
Right.
the friendly smile, the way you have, for example, of making the person you're with feel that they're just the most important person in the room. If your patient coordinator doesn't have that as part of their being, you can't teach it. You can't teach it. Like when it comes to the close, right? After I've been in and they've got to talk about it, well, everybody's got to. She has to have listened so carefully that she understands what's going to get to this person to yes. It's not necessarily about money. Sometimes it's about fear. Sometimes it's about who's going to take care of my kids. Sometimes it's what am I going to look like? How much time can I take off? Or is it inappropriate? Do they think that this is going to get my husband back? This is going to get my job promotion? So all of these things are very important, and you can't teach it. So those are the things I think that differentiate it. Plus, we've been around forever. I've done this for a long time. So one of the things that we wanted to do was put so many before and afters that are really excellent up on our website, that when people go there, and everybody's going to go there, that they're sort of, they get it. They're overwhelmed. Now, one thing we haven't done is differentiate results based on surgeon. That was a big issue, right? Like, are people going to go to the website and see an Austin Weston result, or are they going to see Rob Sigal's results? And honestly, it benefits the younger guys to ride the coattails of the younger guys for a while and not have it known who did what, right? So that's a conscious thing that we did, and other practices I know make different choices, but that's what we did. It worked for us.
You have a ton of photos, by the way. Well, you know what? That's not a bad idea because if you're a practice and do you market yourselves as a practice, or do each of you
Yes.
have your own Instagram accounts and websites?
We have a practice Instagram account, and then which is run by our social media person. And then we each have our own Instagram accounts, just for our personal Instagram accounts. Uh, and then we have sort of the hybrid, which is our doctor Instagram account, which is on our practice Instagram account. Those are buttons underneath the main thing. And there you can find each of our takes on things. But it's more about, those are videos generally. Those are things, us doing things in the operating rooms and talking about it. Individual results, we don't really put them up there.
Like you
Yeah,
don't
no, we don't really do that.
on your Instagram account, you don't put your before and after photos?
Individually,
Uh-huh.
honestly, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be averse to it, but we generally don't do it.
Well, I would
We
say
really
my
generally don't do it.
Instagram, the patients sure like to look at the photos, you know.
They want to see it, and the reality is, Catherine, that us being together for so long in one building, that's
Uh-huh.
another thing. Like when you're a young surgeon, what's the point really of having two offices 5 miles away? I mean, all you're going to do is double your overhead. What's the point? You're traveling. Focus on one place. Make one place work, unless it's so different over there that you got to go do it. But in our place, it's by working in this one building all these years and going into George's operating room and having Dr. Knotts come into Dr. Poindexter's operating room and vice versa, and seeing how we do things, we are more alike in our surgical techniques and our results than any of us would be compared to kind of anybody else around us, right?
Mhm.
And so there is a certain homogeneity to our results over time that, like, I got this cool way of doing lower eyelids I made up. So I showed George, now he loves it too. And, I got this new technique of doing something around the mouth. I show it to Byron, he likes that. Byron shows me this thing where he's doing it under the neck with the muscles, and I modify it. Now I do it every time. We call it a FaceTime facelift. But we're still very similar in our results. And if we're not similar in our results, believe me, the nurses in post-op will let us know that, hey, Sigal, your bruising is much more significant than Weston's. You got to go see what's going on over there, right? So it makes sense for us to sort of put everything up as a group and not individualize based on our individual results.
Gotcha. And then regarding
Yeah.
marketing, how do you know what your marketing budget is? Is it a percentage of? Does it flow depending on if you guys are busy or you need to ramp something up? One thing I do like about you when it comes to marketing, you're very open-minded about new ideas and trying new things, and you've done, I think, everything. Can you
Yeah.
marketing in general, what has worked for you,
Right.
what hasn't, and how much resource do you have to put into it to keep this boat afloat?
So a couple of things. One is 5% of the gross, just a round number to start from. 5% from the gross. All right.
Uh-huh.
So you ought to be thinking along those lines to start. The older your practice, you can come down off of that because you're going to get more personal referrals. Once you develop a couple of years worth of track record, you can budget, and we know to the dollar what we're spending on our marketing. Some things are helpful, some are not. We tried everything, like you said. Radio for us has been useless. Television for us has been pretty useless and very expensive. Print ads are I think if used selectively, very useful, but where they have been.
You're starting to cut out of it.
I'm starting to what?
You're starting to cut out a little bit. Okay, start
Can you
again.
still hear me?
Stay like we're at the mass advertising. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, I can hear you.
Okay, so start again. We'll cut that part. Just start again at what works, like the mass marketing.
Let me try this. Is this better?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so we've some things have worked and some things haven't. What's never worked for us is radio. We get enamored of the idea every once in a while and try it. It does never work. Television is very expensive. If you can get on a show, maybe it helps a little bit, but not really. So we tend to skew away from that. The print media as the backbone of our marketing has become less and less useful as print media becomes less and less useful. But on occasion, for special events like open houses or seminars, we'll use print media and find it helpful along those lines. Now, it's really, social media, it's internet marketing, it's websites, it's how do you get your website noticed, it's search engines modification. And we've gone down multiple different roads to try to influence those things right now. We currently have in-house marketing. We've gone out of house. The benefit of in-house is if you have somebody who's really good and committed, they're going to be dedicated to your practice, as opposed to an outside marketer who are going to have more resources to bear, but aren't only focused on you. They're focused on, a bunch of other practices or other businesses. So we've landed right now in-house. We had, as I said, an in-house videographer until very recently. We may go back to find one because my sense was that video is becoming more important than still photos. I think, my buddy Terry Dubrow, having gotten on the Botched, that's brilliant. If you could get that, you don't have to do any marketing.
Or
right?
marry
But that's going to happen only. Yeah, right. I mean, but at that point, that ain't happening in DC. That's happening on the West Coast where the film industry is. It doesn't happen here. So I don't think that's going to happen here. What was I going to say about?
I think you're right about the video, just to jump in, because I firmly believe everyone's going to need a videographer on the payroll as this content creation has to bump up.
Yes.
And video's where it's at. So, I would suggest everybody get really comfortable being in front of the iPhone or an iPad or a camera or a video, because video's where it's at.
It's so important. But everybody's got their iPhone. They can do their own video. Having a videographer allows you to edit it and put it into parcel produced pieces, which are really cool. The question is it really helpful? I remembered what I wanted to talk about, and I think this is very important. You have a program called KISS, right? So there's, and I want you to talk about it for a minute. But the whole other aspect of marketing is what you do with the patients that you already have, right? Like, not the low-hanging fruit are the ones that know you and come to you. It's the and they're not expensive to get. You already got them.
We already have them.
It's very expensive to get new ones. Right, but how do you keep them? And we're going to start with your KISS program, and we've done many things over the years, but I've always been intrigued by this, and it's out of the box kind of a thing. We don't have to invent the wheel. You've got it for us, so we'll give it a shot.
Good. Well, we'll make sure that.
What have you found? What have you found with it?
With KISS Rewards Club? I mean,
yes.
My philosophy has always been, since I got into this, I don't understand why people or practices don't spend more effort trying to get that patient A to say something to the stranger patient B, like get their friends and family in, because our practices have always grown that way. It's always been by word of mouth, and it always will be. I think what's happened is SEO and social media has become such a frenzy, and it takes everyone off the game and says, oh my God, now we've got to write content, do videos, be on Instagram. And I just never want to forget, the fastest path, the most direct, will always be Susan talking to Karen, always.
Yep.
And I just think you should nurture that. And I always will. So I will always have tools to help do that, because that's where all your leverage is.
Well, you say, well, why haven't surgeons adopted this, or other practitioners adopted this? And there's a certain arrogance to saying, well, I shouldn't have to do that. They should do it, automatically because of their result. Or I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go out and say, I wouldn't talk about my result. Therefore, why would anyone? Well, it's a big world, and there's a lot of people that want to talk about their results, and you ought to encourage them, right? So I think it's a great idea. We'll give it a shot and see what happens. It's marketing. You try it and see if it happens. See if it works. Yep.
Okay. Then let's talk about the practice pitfalls. I like this part, especially when it comes to staff. When you have that many staff and that many partners, you've got a lot of moving parts to this thing. How do you keep everybody, in the right seats, getting them on the bus, all of that, and keeping that culture intact? Is there anything in particular that, other than the meetings and the great communication, and you're pretty transparent, by the way, the staff knows what it is you expect of them, and the KPIs tell them what their numbers need to be. So I like that part a lot. You're not hiding anything. They're very clear, how you want to grow that practice. But is there anything in particular that you do to manage and or motivate the team?
Boy. Oh, man. Yes, there's a lot of things, and there's probably a whole bunch of things I don't even know that we do, like you said, that we do. Vis-a-vis communication. So the KPIs have been helpful along those lines. People know what's expected, and you can watch people within your staff rise up to the challenge, take over a team lead, speak in public, watch them grow in their positions, and you want to reward that. And you reward it with annual reviews where you're honest with them. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And you have to keep personal files on people, because if it comes down to the time where you have to let someone go, Harvey used to say that firing is irresponsible quitting, right? But they should have quit, but they didn't. So if you got to fire them, you better have some reasons, over a period of time in their file written up. And you have to talk to people, right? So our office manager, she's never had really any formal training. So we sent her down to the business management course at Disney. for a week, and she raved about it. So personal development is very important. You know, our nurse anesthetists, they get a week off a year paid to go for learning on top of their other vacation. So if anybody wants to do any developmental course, we pay for it. If people and people in the office see and staff go out and do these things, go out and do different career adjustments, go to nursing school, go to PA school while they're still working here, and we pay them, and then they come back and get a raise, right? So they see that, and that person then tells the other person. And if you're a cultural outlier, you know, eventually you quit. It just doesn't work, you know. Or the apples get polluted and you can't quite figure out what happened, and then you got the problem, right? That's the one you don't want. That's a bad problem.
But I know you also do a killer Christmas party, but throughout the year, do you do anything as a team?
Yes. Yes. So we do. The KPIs have led to quarterly rewards and a bigger half-year reward, and then a very big year-end reward. So if you make if you know we make more than 50% of the KPIs over the course of the year. Last year we took everybody to a casino and took them all out to dinner, gave them a bunch of money to spend. The half year was taking them to Costco and giving them a couple $100 each and letting them go shopping at Costco. We shut the Costco down. We have, you know, masseuses come into the office and give massages. We have crepe trucks pull up and let people go and get free crepes. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep it fun. We have a pool party every summer at my house, and then every Christmas we have a party where we take over a restaurant for the families and staff, and then we have an in-office staff that Dr. Knotts has run for the last number of years. Oh man, this is just a hoot. Last year we had each doctor pick a genre of music. I was rock and roll, Knotts was rap, Poindexter was country western, and George was oldies. And we split the staff up into 4, and we each dressed up and then performed a song.
Oh my God.
And I was Freddie Mercury, and we did Fat Bottom Girls. Which was
Did you videotape it, I hope?
We did. Oh, yeah, we got that. I don't ever want to see that out in the public, though. We got it, yeah. So, look, they got to have fun, you know? I mean, I don't know.
Did you notice a difference when you put those rewards in place and added the perky things, like the fun things to do as a team? Did you notice a difference in the culture?
Well, you'll notice it with some and not with others, right? Like some people, they really, really love that idea. And some people just want to go home at the end of the day, you know, and are just going through the motions. So it becomes obvious. And it's actually a good way to sort of weed them out. Did they take it on? Did they own it? Did they really jump in with 2 feet, or were they just, you know, kind of reluctant players?
And did it make a difference?
That comes up in review. I think it made a big difference in the overall plays, yeah. Big difference. You know, it's interesting. Well, yes, I think it did make a difference in the numbers. I think probably we were up, 15, 16% year over year that we introduced that.
Nice.
So I'm going to have to attribute it to something, right? And so I'll give it to that. Why not? Sure.
Right.
Now, things over time tend to, we have an expression, conversations disappear.
Yes.
So the KPI conversation sort of disappears over time, even though we insist on doing it every month on a Wednesday. It doesn't become as strong a motivator as it was when it's first introduced, right? So you have to come up with new and innovative ways all the time. And the issue, as you get older in practice, like me and Weston, is just like, you know, you rely on the younger guys to have that enthusiasm. So, you know, you were like, what else should I ask you? Kind of question.
Uh-huh.
My wife had this really great question, which is, do you still love it? And what it made me think, right? I mean, what it made me think of is that yes, but differently. When I first started, I was really enthusiastic and I was passionate, and my love was almost fear-based. Like, if this doesn't work, my kids are going to die. You know, I mean, it was really at that existential level, right?
Uh-huh.
I had to make it work, and I did things that, you know, and thought of things on an almost feverish basis. And now I don't feel that way. I kind of got my gottas. You know what I mean? Like, I got the things I got to have, and now I appreciate the practice in a far different way. Like, I think back this week on the people that I saw, this tremendous difference of humanity. I saw, you know, 2 transsexuals that I got to talk to at really intimate levels. A young Black woman from Milwaukee who came to, I did a rhinoplasty on, and I mean, all these wonderful people that I get to, you know, like, you don't get that in any other field, right? And so I didn't appreciate that so much because I was too frantic, you know, 25 years ago, but now I do appreciate it. So I love it in a different way, right?
All right, so we're getting ready to wrap up. Can you just tell me, do you have an exit strategy, or where do you see you going in the future, and where's the practice going? Because pretty soon there's not going to be there's not going to be an Austin Weston. There's just, there is going
Right.
to be a Weston. Yeah.
So that leads me to something else I'd wanted to hope we could get to. I'm glad we're going to talk about it a little bit. When young people join an established practice or join a practice, they think that the buy-in should be a lot less than it is. They think that they're buying a patient list. They're not. They're not buying a patient list. Harvey, when he retired, his patients stopped coming. They're not buying that. What they're buying into is the setup of the place, right? And that's what's special about our place is we've evolved this setup, all these systems, all this culture, all this, knowledge that the institution has that one individual doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And buying into that is expensive, all right? And I didn't see that when I was a younger surgeon. I was just pissed off I had to pay so much.
Right.
But as an older surgeon, I get it. Now, as far as exit strategy, I would like to see Austin Weston keep going on. I think Weston is close to the end. He's going to have another neck surgery, I'm afraid, and I don't know how that's going to go. I could retire tomorrow and be very happy. What we do is we have strategy sessions outside of our normal conversations where we bring in a business person and take a weekend and sit down and try to flesh out how to do these things, right? Because here we have to, again, take our ego out of it and recognize that we need outside eyes to help guide our conversation. Otherwise, it's going to go off track. And what we've learned is that there is a way to do this, given our different preferences for practice, longevity. Like I didn't know that Dr. Knotts isn't really thinking of practicing for another 25 years, right? He's thinking, maybe 10.
Oh.
Well, and Dr. Poindexter's thinking, maybe 10. And I'm thinking, I might cut back, but I can do 5 or 7, and at that point, maybe we bring somebody on, maybe we become more nurse injector based, maybe we bring in a different skill set from another type of provider, not necessarily a plastic surgeon. So I think our options are there. The culture is still there, and I'd like to see it go on. Because I think it's a special thing that develops over time that you'd like to see keep going. So yeah.
I'd like to find out, what would you suggest other surgeons, if they want to up level, what kind of skills do they need in today's world to just
need
this level?
First, they need a severe case of introspection, right? And they have to figure out what they don't know. Right? Mm-hmm. But you can divide the world up into 4 things: things that you know, things that you know you don't know, things that you don't know that you actually do know, which is a very interesting segment. And then the biggest segment by far, which is the things you don't know. And the only way to find those things out is to go travel and learn and see and read and immerse yourself kind of in a humble way, which is you're done maybe when you're younger, or it's a personality-based thing. But I would say, Catherine, look, have them call you. Have them come to your office. Have them call me. We love it when surgeons come by. But believe it, we're going to get more out of them coming to visit us than they're going to get coming to visit from us. So I would, if anybody's hearing this and wants to come. I mean, I'd love to talk to you.
Okay, well then, you heard him. Give him a call.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, there's a lot we've been doing this for an hour, but there's days worth of stuff that we can talk about, and that's best done like when you go to somebody's office or when they come. Well, I haven't really gone to anybody's office because I'm still busy, but if they come to us, you're going to get 4 different opinions on how to do things. You're going to see the setup. You're going to see and feel, like you said, whether it works or whether it doesn't. And then you'll be able to discern with your newcomer eyes what is different that you can bring back to your practice. And to the extent that you have the ability, the humility to come do that, you're going to learn something, and it's going to pay off, guaranteed.
I think the biggest insight you said was introspection. If you can get to know you and what you're made of, well, you're going to find out anyway, running your own practice. They always say,
sure,
you know yourself by either starting a business or having a health issue. That's when you get to know you. And I think that's really true. So like, for example, things that I think are important in today's world are leadership. I think the surgeons have to get a lot better at who am I? What do I value? What's our vision? And how do we keep the troops in line, but in a motivated, inspiring way? I think I'm going to start doing more on leadership because I think that's missing.
It's interesting. I took a course on leadership one time, and you can sum it up in the title of the course. Okay. You can never not lead. You can never not lead, right? And it was a couple of days seminar, but that was the bottom line of the course. Everything you do, everybody's watching all the time. So you got to be on it all the time. And you've said this in some of your podcasts where, if you come in a coat and tie, if you come in, people are going to notice that, and that's going to set a certain tone, as opposed to coming in casually. You can then make a demand that your consultants, that your practice managers show up. looking appropriate because you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
For sure.
So yeah, leadership is very important.
All right. Just give us one big mistake in your career that you made that would be helpful for others not to make.
Oh God. It's funny. I knew you were going to ask this and I thought of it. And I honestly, it's too personal. And I kind of don't want to, I don't want to put it out there just in case my kids someday hear this. But, you know, the business, I would put it in this domain, right? The business mistakes that I've made pale in comparison to personal mistakes that you make. Okay. So be very careful who you get involved with and who you don't. And you can always make money, you know, but feelings can get hurt that can't be taken back.
Okay. And then just lastly, is there one piece of advice universally that would be helpful to everybody who's trying to win at this game of plastic surgery and running a nice practice?
Well, I would say this was the other part of the biggest mistake that I could say, and I think this probably answers your question. When you first come out, go where you want to live, and you'll make it. You know, it's no easier anywhere else. Right? You think it is, but you know, there's no plastic surgeon over there for a reason. You know, and there's a lot of plastic surgeons in LA for a reason. You know, you'll differentiate yourself. There's a way to make a living, but at the end of the day, you're going to walk out the door and you're going to be somewhere. And you better be where you like. You know, you better be where family makes sense or not. You better be where your friends are or not, or where you like the environment, you like the weather, you like the scenery. Do that. I'm happy where I landed for a lot of different reasons, but I always liked LA when I trained out there, and I have a daughter out there now, and I may end up there when it's all over. So we'll see. Yeah, that would be a good one.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Dr. Sigal. So everybody who wants to visit Dr.
My
Sigal,
pleasure.
He said you can visit. Just Google austinweston.com. You'll find him online. And then we're going to wrap it up. So if you would, I'd love for you to subscribe to Beauty and the Biz. And if you would give me a review, that would be terrific because it helps me grow the message and reach more surgeons. And also, please pass this along to your colleagues and your staff and anybody who's trying to understand how do you compete in a very competitive marketplace. Dr. Sigal gave you a ton of tips on how to do that. And then if you've got any comments, I'd love your feedback as well. Just leave me a message at my website at catherinemaley.com. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again.
We hope you found valuable insight on this episode of Beauty and the Biz. For more episodes, tools, and Catherine's free book, visit www.catherinemaley.com. That's www.catherinemaley.com. And be sure to subscribe to get the latest practice building strategies delivered to you. And don't forget to share this Beauty and the Biz podcast with your staff and colleagues.